Hello, agentpreneurs, and welcome to today's episode of the Daily List Report. Thank you, as always, for joining us. We've got a great show for you today. We've got Kamille Rose coming on. She is a peak performance coach with a real focus on mindset and psychology, and this is such an important topic. I personally love this topic, and I can't wait for you guys to get a chance to meet her and hear from her. She's really dedicated her career and her life to this. You know, she's worked with lots of organizations, the Tony Robbins Mastery University, the World Class Speakers Alliance. You know, travels around the world speaking and empowering communities. It's really awesome. She actually worked for a time, I think, as an actress on independent films. She's got a really varied and an interesting background, and I know you're all going to love to hear from her. Of course, while you're here, please consider subscribing to this channel. Click that cool little bell so that you're notified of all future episodes and you get to hear from these wonderful guests who are kind enough to come on this show and share their thoughts and their wisdom. A couple things I want to pull up before, and these are all linked below. The first one is her website, which is theultimatelyfe.com, L-Y-F-E, linked below. You can learn all about Kamille and what she's doing. She's got lots of great resources there. She's also on Instagram, so definitely give her a follow there. She's at I'm Kamille Rose, again, linked below. And then lastly is YouTube. She's got a YouTube channel and a bunch of great content there, so please consider subscribing to her as well. So without further ado, let's bring on Kamille. Kamille, welcome to the show.
Hi, hello everybody. Hi Randy. So excited to be here. I'm stoked.
Really, yeah, I am too. Really excited to talk with you. I feel like this could be a really long show, so we're going to do our best to sort of keep it contained. But why don't we start here? Give a little bit of a background on yourself. Help people understand what in the world a peak performance coach is. What is it that you do, Kamille?
Yeah, absolutely. So as a peak performance coach, people hear that and they're like, oh, okay, fancy. What does that mean? And what I specifically do is I focus on the mindset and the psychology of entrepreneurs, leaders, CEOs, and agents, just like yourself. So my background, my educational background is in psychology and in mass communications. So I'm really big on picking up different linguistic patterns, how people learn, how people think, because I'm a big believer that success is 80% psychology and 20% strategy. So y'all know this, where you know what to do, but then you don't know why you're not doing it, right? It's like, I know I should be making my calls. I know I should be fixing up my CRM. I know I need to reach out to these agents or these LOs, but I just don't want to. Or I freak out before a phone call. Or when the listing doesn't look like it's going to happen, I have major anxiety and I feel like an imposter. So all of these things are rooted in the story of the mind, and then that's where I come in. Because peak performance is not just about doing more, having more, being more, but it's also about overcoming the self-limiting beliefs and the fears that have been holding you back for so long. I'm a really big believer that, you know, entrepreneurs like yourself, Randy, or agents, they want to do more, but they just don't know that thing that could be stopping them or blocking them. And that's what I do.
That's awesome. It's very, very true. You know, one of the things that I don't know if you picked up on yet, but we call our agent audience agentpreneurs.
Oh,
And that was a
cool.
realization, right, as an entrepreneur, as a tech entrepreneur, that agents have to deal with a lot of the same things, which is they have to do, frankly, a lot of or a little bit of everything, right? And that's one of the hard things about being an agent, Kamille, is you have to be a good salesperson and a good marketer and a good customer service and good at finance and good at negotiation and be super organized. And like, it's too much to ask of any one individual, but
Mhm.
it resonates. And so for us, the reason that term matters is because it helps us come from a place of empathy. And I think that
Mm.
this is something that a lot of people are challenged to do with real estate agents. So here's where I want to start, Kamille. Maybe go off script a little bit because I've been thinking about this just over this intro. Is this has been obviously a very interesting year. It's been a very challenging year for a lot of people. But
Right.
what's interesting, Kamille, is that for most agents that I talk to, it's actually been an incredible year from a
Yeah.
business standpoint, right? Specifically, real estate market is super hot, prices are high, people are moving, rates are low. Like, it's been a great market. So when we talk about the nature of this recovery, which, you know, no one will convince me that it's anything but a K-shaped recovery, and agents have been on the upper part of that K.
Mm.
When I started this show, Kamille, we talked a little bit about this, right? Everybody was coming from a place of fear and uncertainty, right? So rewind the clock to March. We didn't know what was going to happen. We didn't know if the market was going to fall apart. We didn't know what was going to happen with unemployment or forbearance. There was all sorts of stuff. And so, you know, we were talking with agents about that. Now, fast forward to where we are today, it turned out it's been a pretty good year for most agents. And so I guess my question for you, Kamille, as a starting point is, one of the challenges I think any entrepreneur or agentpreneur has is the ups and downs, right? You have a great day and then a terrible day. And so when you think about 2020 starting off as one with tremendous amount of fear, uncertainty, and doubt, ending now at a point where the markets are good and everybody actually had a good year, many agents had their best year ever.
Yeah.
How do you process that, right? And how do you think about going into 2020? Because it's been a roller coaster. There's a lot of emotions that are involved. It's been very, very challenging.
Yeah, that's a great question. So I think there's kind of two parts to this. The first one that I saw the other day, which I liked, is that 20 was that it wasn't about trying to get everything that you want or have all that you want, but rather to be grateful for that which you have. And when it comes to defeating fear in the mind or the myth of scarcity, I'm always training my agentpreneurs, because I have a lot of them that I work with, is you have to start with gratitude. Some of the greatest people that I work with, the reason that they can stay steady in the storm, or calm in the chaos, however you want to call it, is because they begin with gratitude. Because if you can just start with something that you're grateful for, I know it seems an overly simple exercise, but it's so powerful because you cannot be fearful and thankful at the same time. The brain doesn't operate that way. The brain
Yeah.
is wired to survive, right? So that's why often our eyes will gear towards the news or things that are fear based because we're trying to survive. That's what gets our attention. But if you can start to train your mind to just focus on, man, I'm just so grateful that I have the opportunity this year to just crush it in real estate. I'm so grateful that the rates are going to stay low for the next 2, 3 years as the economy recovers. So I can absolutely just stay laser focused, save up my money because we know real estate is a cyclical industry. So there's going to be a dip too. But if you're a smart agentpreneur, you treat it like a business. So invest your money back in yourself, invest your money back in the business, invest in real estate, because you know that eventually there's going to be a correction. So starting with gratitude is one. The second piece to this is, like with any entrepreneur, to get to levels of peak performance, you have to know what is in your control and what is not in your control. So, meaning the people who put their mood dependent on an external circumstance, whether 2020 is a good year or a bad year, it's scary because you're always like the victim to whatever's about to happen. I don't know. I'm not in control. That's why people freak out. But if you can remember these three things, the three things you fully control at any given time, it's going to save you a lot of heartache and pain. So I call it the APCs of control. So the APCs of control are attitude, perspective, and choices. That's it. You only ever have control of these three things in your life: your attitude, your perspective on any given situation, and the choice you're about to make. If you can accept the fact that that's it, that's the only thing I have control over, then you can really redirect your energy towards the things that really matter. That's what peak performance is. Peak performance is the preservation of energy. I see too many agentpreneurs wasting their time and energy complaining, worried about things they cannot control. So then they have nothing left over to troubleshoot for that client. They have nothing left over for their wife or their husband at the end of the day. They have nothing left over for their kids because they expended so much energy worrying about something that doesn't even exist yet.
Yeah.
Because the truth is, just like with COVID, with our race wars happening, like with this election, none of us anticipated any of this. So to waste our time constantly trying to predict the future, unless you're an economist and that's your job, I would really focus on what you can control, which is, what is my attitude today coming into the situation? What is my perspective about this particular deal or client? And what choice am I about to make this morning? That's it. You
That's
you put
really
your focus
interesting.
there, you'll absolutely rock it in 2021.
I love that, and that's really practical advice. So let's dive a little bit deeper into this, right?
Mhm.
So attitude is number one. I think attitude is pretty self evident, right? It's like how we choose, right, to sort of deal with these circumstances or situations, right, and the attitude that we have. And I'm a big believer in positive attitude and positive energy and things like that. I think you have some association with the Tony Robbins organization or have participated in that. I remember I went to a UPW a few years ago, and this was not a I'm not a guru kind of guy, right? I mean, no disrespect, it just wasn't my thing. And so I went on the recommendation of a friend, and while I'm still not a guru kind of guy, I will tell you this: the energy at that event was insane. You know
Yeah.
this, and it was infectious, and it was like being at the best, most awesome club party, motivation, inspirational thing, 15 hours a day. Like, it was incredible. And that energy is power in my mind, right? That
Yeah.
energy is tremendously powerful. So attitude, I think, makes sense. Perspective, I want to dive in on that one a little bit more, though, right? So one of the concepts I'm sure you're well familiar, probably more than me, with, but something that I believe very much in is this concept of reframing.
Yeah.
And taking a situation. Here's a for all of you watching right now. This is a classic example: is the difference between I have to go to work and I get to go to work. Right. That is
Hmm.
is a small example of reframing something.
Yep.
And so, can you talk a little bit more, just more depth about perspective? Because I think that perspective is everything. I think it's, in a sense, the most important thing here. And so I just would love to get your perspective on perspective.
Absolutely. Well, I think it's a simple conversation. I completely agree. I wish I had more drama for you to say like, no, I disagree with you, Randy, but I
It's
don't.
okay.
You're 100% right. Everything is perspective. There's a really beautiful saying from, gosh, I forget his name. It's at the tip of my tongue, but he talks about how when you change, oh, it's Dr. Wayne Dyer. When you change the way that you look at things, the things you look at begin to change. So, take for example, you're looking at your spouse and you're really annoyed with them right now. They just did something bugs you, and so you're looking at them from the lens of they're so annoying. They never take out the trash. They never think about me. They're always thinking about themselves. And this is now your perspective. And then you decide to call me, Kamille Rose, your coach. You're like, look, I just need a quick perspective change because I'm just attacking my spouse right now. And so I just asked you, okay, what is something great that they've done for you in the past month? Something that they did that made you feel really loved. Oh, well, he actually left me a really nice note the other day, or, she brought my lunch to the office when I forgot it. Okay, great. Now I want you to completely magnify that thought process. And I want you to see your spouse from that lens as the person who loved me enough to still do this. And now just see them from that lens. And so you start being grateful, going back to gratitude, seeing the things that they've done that are great. And almost immediately, you'll notice your body shift, your heart change, and you'll feel differently about them. In fact, then now your husband and your wife, or whoever you're with, is more attractive in your eyes simply because you thought differently about them. I call it switching the lenses, right? You've heard of rose colored glasses. Well,
Yeah.
you can put your gratitude glasses, but that's why it's your choice. Another way that perspective is so important is, and this is why very valuable um, investment that you make in yourself, you should be speaking to what I call a higher level thinker than you at least once a week. Because a great coach, a great mentor, a great consultant is somebody who asks great questions. Questions are destiny. And so the quality of the questions you ask then lead to either quality answers or very poor quality answers. And so often people don't ask themselves good questions. They'll ask things like, what's wrong with me? Well, if you ask the brain what's wrong with you, guess what it looks for? It Google search everything that's wrong with you.
Right.
And people think, oh, but if I ask that question, Kamille, what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to figure out a solution. Well, the brain's very energy efficient. So if the question is, what's wrong with you? It looks for everything that's wrong with you. But if the question is, okay, what can I do to improve and get even better at this situation right now? That's what the brain looks for. So I would encourage people not only to ask great questions, but get around other people who can ask you great objective questions. So, like for example, Randy and I, you and I could chat all day, and I might be able to ask you about a situation you're in from a very different perspective because I'm objective. I'm not in it. You are emotionally attached. I'm not. And to be able to get you to think from just a new perspective can be the game changer. A title that I often will get from other clients is I am a perception enhancement specialist.
That's
And
catchy.
yeah, and I like it because the greatest compliment I think I can ever receive from a client is when they tell me, I never thought of it that way before. And then to me, I can just drop the mic and I'm like, perfect. That was the point of today is I just needed you to see this from a different perspective. Is there another angle that you can take? So you're
It's so true. It's so true. Camille, one of the things that has absolutely been true throughout my career is that the most successful people that I have met all have that, right? They have somebody or some people, you can call them advisors, you can call them mentors, you can call them coaches, somebody in their life that is slightly adjacent and outside of their world that is able to give them a perspective that they didn't have before. And I agree with you. When I have a conversation with someone on my team and they say, gosh, I never thought of it like that. You know, that is the mic drop moment, right? You know that you found success because they're looking at something in a completely different way. You know, I want to take one more segue before we get into choices because I have some questions about that, which is I want to get your thoughts on this one. Maybe we'll get some controversy here. We don't need controversy. I'm just messing with you. Also, your name is Kamille Rose, and you mentioned rose-colored glasses, which is not always a good thing, but I was like, that should be like your little shtick. You should have like rose-colored glasses because, I don't know, it's like on brand, right?
I love it. I love it.
So, one of the things that we do here at ListReports, we're really proud of this. We've developed sort of a series of, coaching presentations for our team. We actually gave them to a massive group from the military as part of a give back thing, Navy men and women last year. And it's basically boils down to superpowers and kryptonite. And the idea is this, we ask people, even when we interview them, what do you think your superpower is? And most of the time they don't have a good answer, and that's okay, right? But what we do is we try to help people in the company develop what we call a superpower. And by contrast, right, also to identify what their kryptonite is. And the reason for this is I think that, to your point of mindset and perspective, that a lot of times people look at the things that they can't do more than they look at the things that they can do. That's a very natural kind of behavior. And it is our belief that doubling down on what you're good at is the best path forward. It doesn't mean that you don't want to shore up any of your weaknesses, but it's sort of futile to try to turn your kryptonite into your superpower. Rather, recognize that your superpower is what makes you special and unique and be the best thing at that, right? It's this intersection of what you're really good at and what you're passionate about, right? So my example, and super boiled down because I'm a simple guy, is my superpower is what I call 0 to 1. And my kryptonite is what I call 1 to 1.1. And that is a reference to sort of software terms, right? But in other words, my superpower is taking nothing, a concept, a conversation, turning it into something. Maybe that's why I'm an entrepreneur. My kryptonite is 1 to 1.1, which is what I call the incremental or the pedantic, right? Now we've got the thing, let's make it a little bit better and a little bit better and a little bit better. I'm really bad at that, and I understand and I recognize that. So rather than trying to be better at that, this helps me say, I want to be the best in the world at 0 to 1 and hire people and bring people around me that are good at the 1.1. So I just kind of wanted to get your thoughts or reactions to that concept because it's been very powerful for us and for our team.
Yeah, absolutely. And that idea is actually what led me to the career that I have today because I was that person who was so focused on my weaknesses and, as you mentioned, trying to shore those up. Because I think from the beginning of school, and everyone's got a different background, but school pushes you to get straight A's, right? It's like be good at everything. And I don't necessarily agree with that. I think that, and talk about controversy, I think that we need to be actually training up young people in whatever their natural skill set is and totally enhancing that. Not to say that we shouldn't become literate in all things, but honestly, I personally didn't need to know, what is it? Advanced math CD for what I do now. If I was, sufficient in or proficient in algebra and geometry, I'm good to go. But the first 3 years I was at UC Berkeley, I was pre-med. And I thought that's what I was supposed to do. I grew up in a Filipino American household, being Asian. I was like, yeah, I can only be a doctor, lawyer, engineer. There were very limited choices for me, or at least that's what I perceived. And I was failing. It was the first time in my life that I had been failing at courses. I was not doing well in science. I was not doing well in chemistry. But I was also that student who was getting straight A's in high school and in middle school. So I was so distraught my first time failing at something. And I remember a distinct moment. I went to see a counselor, probably about my second or third year at Cal. And I was so depressed. My mom's a single mom, so we had a very limited budget. I had to finish school in exactly 4 years because we didn't have enough money. And I felt like I wasted my first 2 years because I was just not doing well. And my counselor looks at my grades. She sees this pattern and she goes, Kamille, I know you're not doing so well in chemistry and math and science and bio, but you're absolutely excelling in mass communication, psychology, political science, and sociology. And my excuse was, well, those are easy. I have to do good at the stuff I'm bad at, right?
Right, yes.
And she looked at me and she said, honey, who told you that? And I said, well, I don't know. Aren't I supposed to just get all good grades? And she goes, no, this is the time that we focus on your strengths, not your weaknesses. And by the way, psychology, political science, mass communications, public speaking is not easy for
No,
everybody. Maybe it's
no.
easy for you, but it's not easy for everyone. And so that was kind of a light bulb moment. And here was the key question she asked me. She said, why do you want to be a doctor anyway? So tell me why you're in pre med. And immediately I said, I want to help heal people. And then she looked at me and responded with, oh, Kamille, there is more than one way to heal people. You do not have to be a surgeon to do that.
Was that a mic drop moment for you?
It was probably 8 years later because I was in college. So I didn't really know what she meant by that. Because
Yeah.
I'm just, again, thinking very like, well, job wise, what am I supposed to do with mass communications? It seems so broad. Well, but now in hindsight, when I look at what I do now, I'm healing mindset. You know, God, about with CEOs of companies and wondering why they couldn't, negotiate this deal. And they said they froze up with anxiety. And then I go all the way back to when they were 5. And I'm like, remember that time your dad yelled at you and said you weren't good enough? Do you feel like maybe this negotiation felt like that? And he's like, oh my gosh, are you kidding me? I'm the CEO of a Fortune 10 company. How am I going all the way
Yeah.
back to childhood? And so when we're able to address those stories and heal that, then he's Superman again or she's Superwoman again. Um, but I realized when I focus on my strengths, what I call my universe given, my God given talents, and I just, like you said, double down, triple down on that, you're able to impact so many more lives. You're able to have so much more wealth of time, energy, money, finances, because now you're in your passion zone. What the big leap, the Gay Hendricks called the genius zone. And often people are not playing in their genius zone. So that's where I come in to take people from their, you know, pretty good, good enough zone all the way up to genius zone. And what people think, and here's the misconception, Randy, they think it's a big jump. They think like, oh my gosh, to go from great to genius, that's so much. Actually, often it's just a 1 millimeter shift in your mindset. And
You
that's all
know,
it takes.
we could do a whole nother show on that because I think that that concept, this notion that in our minds things are bigger, harder, more difficult than we think they are, that they're actually a lot easier than that, that it's that 1 millimeter or 1 degree shift is a
Yeah.
really interesting topic. We won't go into that one today, but I actually think that's a fascinating topic. Okay, so let's go to the last one of your APCs, we'll call them, right? So attitude, perspective, we talked about. The last one is choices.
Hmm.
And this is the one that I think, and you can correct me because you're the expert, I'm not. Here's what I think. I think that people get these backwards, right? I think that people think about choices first because it's the easiest thing to think about, right? Which is, oh, I'm not eating well, I need to choose better food, right? And the problem with that, I think, is that if your attitude and your perspective isn't in alignment, then you're not in a position to make those choices. So I think people go about this backwards. So talk a little bit about choices because it's the thing that I think resonates with everybody. Everybody watching right now is remembers a time in my life many times where I made terrible choices, right?
Hmm.
And it was because I think the foundational items were misaligned. Is that how you see it too? Talk a little bit about the choice piece.
And it's perfect because let's just take again the example of when I was in school. I made the choice to go pre med and I eventually failed at it. Why? Seemed like I had good intentions. I wanted to help people, but the perspective was a little wrong because when that counselor asked better questions, and that's why I say you need to be with somebody who's going to ask you questions, she's like, well, why do you really want to do this? And I said, to heal people. And she realized I had a very uh, narrow view of what healing people looked like. I thought I had to shore up my weaknesses in order to help people. I mean, I had to be good at everything in order to heal people, because then who am I to help people overcome
Yeah,
something if
right,
I don't have it all together, right?
right,
So
yeah,
she saw a limiting belief in my perspective, which, while again, on the outside, the choice looks good. Who doesn't want to be a doctor? But I end up failing anyway because there's still a fear behind that choice. So at the end of the day, the simplest way to put this is you're always making a choice between fear or love. That is literally the simplest way to put it, or life or death. So people kind of put it in different perspectives. But I see people often making their choices rooted in fear. So it will do and look good for a little bit, but then there will be a dropping off point. And so that's why doing the mental work first to really figure out, why am I doing this? Am I really clear? Is this really my passion? Is it really my strengths? Is it really my superpower? What are my potential kryptonites? When you're rooted in that and you have clarity, clarity is key to all things, then the choice will be longer sustaining. Because remember, there's a difference between obtainable and sustainable. There's a lot of people who crash diet. They finally break the barrier of getting down 35 pounds. So it was attainable to get to 35 pounds because they starved themselves for that 30 days, or they only drank green juice. And then, of course, they gained the weight back again, and then they yo-yo, right? So it wasn't a sustainable effort. Versus the people who are energy. So, they're a little slower, they're more consistent, kind of like the tortoise and the hare story.
Yes.
But now it's sustainable. So as an entrepreneur, as an agentpreneur, I'm going to encourage you to make sustainable choices. Always asking yourself, if I do this right now, is it obtainable and then I'm going to burn out? Or is it, a little of a longer race, but it's more sustainable for me to make this shift in my business? And so that's something to think about when you make choices as well.
That. I love that. Kamille, that's great advice, fantastic advice, actually. And I think it's something that all of us can relate to, right? And so that's a different way to think about that. And I like that focus on sustainable versus obtainable. I also like making sure that, the foundation is in place, right? Which is, it's not just about the choices you make. If you don't have the right perspective, if you don't have the right attitude, then those things are going to be misaligned. And I think that's where I've made personally mistakes in my life, is focusing on the tactical and the in the moment as opposed to the foundation, which is why I spend so much time with my team and people I talk to trying to get to the why, the underlying things, right? The deeper you can go, I think the more you can drive that alignment. Kamille, here's what I want to do. So I can't believe we're 27 minutes into this conversation. I don't think we got to a tenth of what we intended to, but we got through the APCs, and I think that is a fantastic place to start. So if you are willing to come back and share your wisdom, I would love to have another conversation with you on the show.
Absolutely. I'd be honored. I mean, we could talk about this for days on end because it's always affecting us all the time. So I'd be honored to, Randy. Happy to.
I appreciate that very much. Make sure you get your rose-colored glasses. You send them out to all your clients. Like, that's going to be a lot of fun. So,
yo, I'm gonna have to do a collaboration with your brand. You have to be on my branding team now because that was just such a fire suggestion.
I'm in. I'm available. Whatever you want to talk. I love talking about this stuff, so it's fun.
Awesome.
Kamille, thanks so much for being here today. We'll talk to you again real soon. Okay.
All right. Sounds good. Thank you, everybody. Have an amazing day.
Thanks, Kamille. All right. Well, there you have it. Oh man, see, she's challenging me now because now she's vying for like my most favorite guest, and you're not supposed to do that when you interview people, but she's like a real contender now. So I'm gonna hold off judgment until she's back on the show. But that was a great conversation. So APC, attitude, perspective, choices. This stuff matters, right? All of you out there are running your business and you're doing your day to day, and if you're not connecting with people, as she said, who are slightly sort of outside of your ring, mentors, coaches, whatever you want to call them. Kamille's obviously a great resource, so please check out her website, click on her links below. But you need that, and that mic drop moment, I can totally relate to, right? When somebody's talking to me or I'm talking to them, and all of a sudden they go, I never thought of it that way. That is that reframing. That's such a powerful moment, and it changes everything, and it can change it in a moment. Massive action is what Tony Robbins says, and it's absolutely true. So that's it for today. Thanks for joining. Gosh, that was a great conversation. All right, everybody. Until tomorrow, be safe, be healthy, be happy, get after it. Remember your APCs, attitude, perspective, choices. And we'll talk to you soon.